Recently, as part of a routine medical procedure, I needed to get hooked up to an IV. Unfortunately, the nurse who was hooking me up to the IV was very, very, very nice, but she really struggled. She poked my right arm with the needle, and then she said, "Oh, uh-oh." You don't want to hear "uh-oh" when somebody pokes with a needle, and she said, "Oh, that didn't work, I'm so sorry." And then she poked my right arm with a needle a second time, and then she said those dreaded words, "uh-oh, that didn't work." And then she said words that were very welcome to my ears, "Let me see if I can get another nurse." So she got another nurse, and the nurse came, and on the third time was a charm, and the IV took, the procedure was done, I got home, I'm fine, but my right arm had all these cuts and bruises on it from the bungled IV. So I wanted some sympathy. And I decided that I would look for that sympathy from my wife. Perhaps that was not the most efficacious strategy. So I went to my wife, and I decided that in order to inspire that kind of sympathy, I needed to zhuzh up the language. I couldn't just say I had cuts and bruises. So I said, "Shira, I've got lacerations on my arms. I've got contusions. I think this might even be a hematoma from the mangled IV." Now, I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but I was not expecting what I got. What I got was, she took one cursory look at my arm, and she said, "Buck up, buttercup." Now, I don't even know what buck up, buttercup means. I'd never heard it. She had never said it before. But it sounded like, kinda, that buck up, buttercup was not the sympathy that I was looking for. So the bad news was I did not get the sympathy I was looking for. But the good news is I got a legit question for a sermon, which is it a Jewish virtue not to complain? Or is it a Jewish virtue to complain? And that question is timely. And that question is all of our question. Because on Monday night and Tuesday and Wednesday, on Rosh Hashanah, all of us here are going to face not one, but two painful gaps. There is the gap between the world as it is and the world that we would dream it to be. And there is the painful question of the gap between our own private world, my life, our life, and my world as I would wish it to be. And the question is, as we think about the gap between the world and our world as it should be, and the world and our world as it is, how do we think about complaining? Is complaining about it helpful? Is complaining about it effective? What does Judaism have to say about complaining? And it turns out Judaism has a lot to say about complaining. Here's the deal. It seems like, for the most part, there's a caveat I'll come to at the end, but for the most part, our sources discourage us from complaining about our own private hurt, our own woe, our own world of pain. And complaining about me, myself, and I is disfavored. And the main source in the Torah is the story of Aaron's sons. You remember that on the day that the tabernacle is supposed to be dedicated, on the 8th day, it's supposed to be such a joyful day. His two older sons, Nadav and Avihu, die. God takes their life, not clear why. They came too close, they offered a strange fire, whatever. God took their lives. And Aaron lost not a child. Aaron lost 2 children. And the text says, Vayidom Aharon, Aaron was silent. And in fact, he continues with his priestly duties. And Aaron in this story seems to role model a silent, strong stoicism. That our response is to take the hand that we are dealt and don't complain about it. Vayidom Aharon. Now, I can tell you, so many of our families, I can't even count how many, channel Aaron's energy. I cannot tell you how many families I'm with when their beloved mother or father has died, or their beloved grandparent has died. And I will always hear something like this. My mother had a long, hard last chapter, but she never complained. My father's last years were a slog, but he never complained. My mother was so strong. My father was so stoical. It seems to be that the Jewish people, at least the Jewish people that I know at Temple Emmanuel, tend not to complain about our own pain. And in fact, not complaining seems to be, what I've observed with my own eyes and heard with my own ears, seems to be a virtue. I'll come back to that because I don't think that is always the right move. But let's, at this point in the sermon, say complaining about our own world of hurt seems disfavored. By contrast, complaint as a moral lament about injustice in the world, that is definitely seen as a religious ideal. That's what the prophets do all day long. Amos complains about the persecution of the vulnerable. Isaiah complains about the corruption of the powerful. Isaiah complains, you all know this because this is the Haftarah for Yom Kippur, chapter 58. He complains about empty religious rituals. Is this the fast that I desire? You starve your body when you act unethically. Hosea complains about the people are faithless, and Jeremiah complains because the people are faithless. We're going to get exiled from our land, and all of them learned this from our father Abraham, the hero of the high holidays, who makes complaining about injustice a religious ideal. When God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham famously says, far be it from you. You're going to sweep the innocent along with the guilty. Shall not the judge of all the world judge justly? And then Abraham pairs his complaint with action. He negotiates God down to 10 righteous people. I'll spare the town. In other words, it seems that the sources are saying it is very much a religious ideal. This is something Jews do. This is something not to should on you, but Jews should do. Jews should complain about injustice in the world. Amos did it, Isaiah did it, Jeremiah did it, Isaac and Isaiah did it, and Abraham, our father, did it. We should do it too. Now, we have a lot of guests from Israel, Alon's family. And our brothers and sisters in Israel, they get this vibe and they channel this energy intuitively. Israelis protest against injustice, and this has been going on for some time. This has been going on before October 7th. This was going on in earnest with the judicial reform controversy, taking to the streets with Israeli flags, protesting. Alon spoke about that so powerfully in his beautiful Devar. And I'll never forget, Shira and I were visiting Israel once a month at the time because our father was passing away. So we're always in Israel, and we're visiting a friend, again, before October 7th. And we were there Saturday afternoon, and the sun set, and Shabbos was over, and now it's Saturday night. So we said to our hosts, hey, what do Israelis do? What are you going to do on this wonderful Saturday night? I'll never forget what he said. He said, "What do I want to do, or what am I going to do?" So I said, both. What do I want to do? I want to stay home and watch Netflix. What am I going to do? We're going to take our Israeli flags, and we're going to hit to the streets, and we're going to protest. And they were doing that then. They've been doing that, of course, recently with the ongoing war and the fact that the hostages are not back. Israeli Jews get that Abraham move. Here's a question for you. Do American Jews get that Abraham move? Do American Jews, here's a question for you. What is the place in your religious consciousness? What is the place in your religious practice? What is the place in your lived Judaism of complaint as moral lament, complaint against injustice in our society? Now, there was a time when American Jews got this very deeply. Famously, iconically, Abraham Joshua Heschel marched with Martin Luther King. Famously, iconically, Jewish college students died in the Deep South during the Civil War. And if you roll the film, I'm seeing Joel and Sue Sherman. I remember the rally in Washington, D.C. when Gorbachev came to town to see President Reagan, Free Soviet Jewry. There were Jews from 50 states. Thank you, Joel. And after October 7th, in the aftermath, huge rally in Washington, D.C. And to this day, Ad Hayom Hazeh, if you drive your car through Newton Center on a Sunday, you will always see a small group of determined protesters with an Israeli flag protesting the fact that there are still hostages almost 2 years later in hell in Gaza. So here is a question that I want to ask you, and this question is very, 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 very uncomfortable. It's a very uncomfortable question. Let me own that. And this question is very, 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 very necessary. What is the place of protesting injustice in your Judaism? And it's uncomfortable because we don't agree. We don't agree. We don't agree on what's wrong with the world. We don't agree on how to fix it. And the question is necessary because it is undeniable how much pain the world is in. So, no sermon could possibly answer this question for you. No rabbi could possibly answer this question for you. The only person who can answer this question for you is you. Only you can answer this hard, uncomfortable, necessary question for you. But here's the question. It's the eve of Rosh Hashanah. And if we don't invite you to think about this question, we're not doing our job. What is the place of moral protest about the pain in our world, in your Judaism today? So, seems like what's Judaism's Torah on complaints? Don't do it if it's about your own pain. Do it if it's about the pain of the world. And now I want to revisit it. Is there some way to think about complaining about our own pain as an eminently worthy enterprise? So the great Rabbi Harold Kushner, may he rest in peace, once told a story about an experiment, which is that two people were asked to stick their right foot in a vat of freezing cold water filled with ice cubes. And the point of the experiment was how long could they stand their right leg in a vat of frozen cold ice water. And they were each in a separate room. And here was the difference. In one room, the person was by himself. He had to just have his leg in this painful water by himself. In the next room, he was able to bring a friend. In the room by himself, he couldn't complain to anybody because there was nobody to complain to. In the second room, he could complain to his friend, "Oh my God, this water is so cold, this is so painful, this is such an ordeal." And the friend could listen and care and share. And Rabbi Kushner pointed out that the answer to the question, how long could they stand it, was the person who had no friend could not stand it very long, gave up very soon. And the person who had a friend could stand it much longer. The moral of the story and the point of the experiment is that we do much better when we go through adversity with somebody else. It just gives us more strength and more energy and more resolve for the road ahead. So, if there is some pain in your life and you want to share it with a friend who is there to hear it and to care and to be with you, that is what friends are for. That is a good thing. But of course, there's also one more layer, which is the words we say affect the feelings we feel, which affect the deeds we do. The words we say affect the feelings we feel, which affect the deeds we do. So, if you say, the sky is falling, it's a disaster, then you'll feel like the sky is falling, it's a disaster. And you'll be living in a world where the sky is falling, it's a disaster. Conversely, if you say, I've got this, everything's going to be just fine, you will feel like, I've got this, everything's going to be just fine. And now you'll be living in a world where I've got this, everything's going to be just fine. So, on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, here's our crucial question. What path is going to serve you best? What path is going to give you more energy for the road ahead? If it's to complain to a friend, and you're going to get more strength like the person in the ice water experiment, go for it. But remember that the words we say often create reality on the ground, both for oi and for joy. As Kohelet put it so many years ago, there's a time and place for everything. There is a time and place to share our pain with our friends. And there is a time and place, as I learned this week, to buck up, Buttercup. May we pick the path that will give us more peace and that will serve us today.